Hi, are you ready? A lot of bad fiction purports to start out with, "It was a dark and stormy night." But this story really does start there. You see, after we had been in Putney, Vermont for a while, my father decided that he needed for us to move back to New York City. He needed to do that for his work at the time, and actually for the rest of his life, he worked as a translator of Russian technical journals. So, he had a very dear friend, Erica Brigham, on whom I believe he had quite a crush at one point. But in any event, she was a very good friend of his, and at that time, she was the manager at the Putney Inn, which was a lovely hotel slash motel. It had a very nice dining facility, and she was the manager there. So my father arranged for me to stay at the inn under her eye while he went back to New York City to find a place for us. Now, those of you who've been following along will remember that for the first year after we moved from New York to Putney, I absolutely hated it, and I couldn't wait to get back to a big city, to New York. But after about a year, I had a change of heart, and I really became a New England girl and a country girl, and never again would I ever want to live in a city. And that's true to this day. In fact, I live in Boulder because it reminded me so much of New England. So I was really not happy at all about being dragged back to New York City. So I was staying at the Putney Inn with Erica, and I had my own room there. And I was there for several days. I don't remember quite how many, but the arrangement was that my father would find a place for us in New York, and then Erica was to put me on the bus from Putney to New York City. And of course, my dad would be waiting for me at the other end. I should also warn you at this point that this segment is probably going to be one of the longest, so you may want to pull up a chair, grab your tea, and sit back. So there I was at the Putney Inn, and being the precocious thing that I was, and mind you, I was about 11 at this point, I would help in the dining room, bussing tables, and the thing I most loved to do was to sit at the front desk running the switchboard. Now, at the time, the Putney Inn had still one of those old-fashioned switchboards that had the wires and plugs, and in order to connect a call, you had to literally plug the caller in on one end and plug them into the line that they were calling on the other end. Very much like if you remember Petticoat Junction or Green Acres, that sort of switchboard. Well, I had learned how to run that switchboard, and I loved doing that. And in fact, before my father left, he was staying in a room there, and I used to eavesdrop on his calls, which I could do. So I was a sneaky little thing. So one night, and it was indeed a dark and stormy night, I was sitting at the switchboard, running it. I know that seems odd. I was 11, but there you have it. I was the one sitting at the front desk, sitting at the switchboard, and the door opened, and in walked this family of a mother and a father and a son and a daughter. And they were, bedraggled and wet because it was pouring out. And they told me they needed a room for the night. Just one night, because they were heading back to New York City the next day. They turned out to be there to find a place to live in Putney because they were moving from New York to Putney. And they had found a house, and now they were going back to New York to finalize things and get their things and move back up to Putney. Well, the room that they wanted wasn't available. There was no room at the inn. Yes, I realized that I'm not the first to say that. But all the rooms were full, and they didn't know what they were going to do. The Putney Inn was the only place in town at the time. They needed a room. They couldn't drive back that night. It was late. And my little brain started going, the gears started turning, and I thought, gee, I have a room, and I need to go to New York, and I bet I could save that bus fare and put it in my pocket if I had a ride. So I said to them, I have a room, and you guys could stay in my room if in exchange you would let me ride with you back to New York tomorrow. And they agreed. Now, I look back on this, and I'm a bit flabbergasted. First of all, that I did that and offered that, and second of all, that they agreed, but that's what happened. So we put a cot in my room, and I gave the parents my bed, and the kids all slept either on the cot or the floor. And we chatted, and we, got to know each other. And I got a ride to New York the next day. And on the way down to New York, again, those gears turning, I don't want to be in New York. I want to stay in Putney. Hey, these guys have a couple of kids around my age. The boy was a little older, the girl a little younger. I said, and I remember to this day saying this, again, unbelievable as it is, I said, how would you like to have another kid living with you? Because I bet my dad would pay you some board if I could stay with you, because I don't want to go back to New York, and I want to stay in Putney with my friends and go to school here. And astonishingly, they agreed. They said that if my dad agreed, they were okay with it. Now this was, let's see, 1969, we're still in the kind of hippie era, I guess. I honestly, I have no way to explain why they agreed to this, let alone why I proposed it. But that's how it happened. And my father agreed. And that is how I started making my own decisions about where I was going to live and striking out on my own. Again, not by myself. I was only 11. That didn't happen till I was 15. But that's how it happened. And perhaps one of the most interesting aspects of that is that, again, with Facebook, I am in touch with the boy, Eric Leo. The mom was Peggy Leo. Eric and I have connected last year. He came through Colorado, and we got to have coffee, and that was really, really cool. And the younger girl, the girl who's a bit younger than me, she is actress Melissa Leo. And I'm sure, Melissa, you're never going to see this, but I just want you to know how incredibly proud I am of you. Okay, I'm sorry this was so long. You guys wanted to hear that story, and there is more to come that is even more, in some ways, unbelievable as I look back. So thank you for tuning in, and stay tuned.